Yeah, it's really unfortunate that's the way qualifying went with his last race here. It's been a dynasty, hasn't it? I mean, that in isolation is an absolute Hall of Fame career, and you got to remember he came there as already a world champion, and he's not finished yet. He's moving on to Ferrari, obviously, and hopes to accomplish so much more. But look, this team, what they've accomplished together, I mean, it's truly remarkable. There are no words left to describe the success that this group has had, and I think everybody would be thrilled to see them go out on a high. Lewis has been a little bit lighter this weekend, I think, than we've seen the last couple. The emotion of the season, he admitted, had really got to him more than he was expecting. And yeah, it's all about his kind of, as he said, being present and enjoying this last ride with Mercedes.
He did arrive this morning to track in the brightest flame red. We know Lewis Hamilton loves to express himself through fashion. It's, you know, chair of the Met Gala. The man loves fashion and he wears what he wants to wear so well. What was he trying to express, do you feel, there? And do you think it's the right way to say goodbye to Mercedes today?
You know, it's hard to believe that there's not some intent behind it. But look, you know, it's not what I would have done. I'm sure it's not the Mercedes team wanted to see him walk in to the paddock with today. But look, he's acknowledging that the next chapter is opening. As much as we've been talking about the closing of the chapter between him and Mercedes, he's almost already, you know, a few months ahead of the curve and thinking about the start of his career with Ferrari. So it's interesting choice. His outfits kind of went from silver to a blend of silver and red to red over the course of the weekend. I don't know if that was planned.
That's symbolic.
It does seem like it. He knows what he's doing.
He knows
he's
exactly
a clever
what
guy.
he's doing with how he dresses and the way he wears it and the way he comes into the paddock each day. And today was absolutely no exception. On the other side of the garage then with George Russell, he'll be starting some way up toward P7. But they haven't seemed to know where they're at this weekend, Mercedes, in terms of that pace, have they? Where do you think George will put himself? Where's his fight today, knowing he's also got Max Verstappen very close for comfort?
I mean, honestly, his fight is going to be trying to get ahead of Pierre Gasly and keep Nico Hülkenberg behind. The Mercedes is tough. He said he was even surprised to be 7th in qualifying, moved up to 6th because of that Hülkenberg penalty. But when we've seen that pace out of the Mercedes over the last few rounds, it has been in colder conditions. We've seen all year this up and down over the course of a weekend. When we've seen it steady, it's been at Las Vegas where it was cool. It's been at Qatar where it was cool. It's 29 degrees right now. It's going to cool down, but it's not going to get to the range that this Mercedes really comes alive. So I do think it's going to be a long race for George.
It's actually a perfect temperature for standing here talking about Formula One. I'd imagine it'll be quite warm out there. George, of course, qualified P7, and the Nico Hülkenberg penalty means he will be starting P6. Everyone just shifting up there. On to Williams, other side of the grid, other end of the grid, more towards we are now. Both taking 5-place grid jobs for new gearboxes. Those cars have had no ends of rebuilds. I think Williams are in a position where they are just wanting to get to the end of this season relatively unscathed, a clean weekend, and see what they can salvage from this, because it has been desperately tough in recent weeks, hasn't it?
It really has, and the fact they both had to take penalties for component changes just shows you that's the amount of damage they've had. They've gone above allocations on a couple different parts. As this Mercedes fires up behind us, and a little bit of a backfire there out of that impressive engine, and they've shut it down immediately. Hopefully that wasn't something worse. But no, it's going to be tough for them. They almost have to use today as a bit of a test session, a bit of a learning session towards 25. A lot of teams have done that throughout the last few Grand Prix, and from where they are, the pace they've got, points isn't really on the cards. Let's learn what we can. Go into the off-season off the back of a smooth, even if not fast weekend. I think that's the goal.
Yeah, and we also wish Franco Colapinto a brilliant final Grand Prix for Williams as well, having stepped in for half the season or so. Okay, we're heading now to the pit lane. Ruth standing by to talk us through all things strategy for today. Ruth, what's it looking like?
Well, the reality is no one knows for sure. Here we are in the pit lane next to McLaren, that we're wanting it to be nice and easy. Unfortunately, it rarely is in Abu Dhabi. 22 seconds for a pit stop round here. Expect most cars to start on that yellow medium tyre. Medium hard is a baseline. If the tyres like they were on Friday's FP2 session, then it's a one-stop race. But we've seen here a safety car, a virtual safety car, or the degradation creeping up can push it to a two-stop. Medium, hard, hard. 9 teams have saved 2 hards to cover for that scenario. They're going to be flexible, and today it's going to be all about reading the conditions that you have. They have 10 laps to make a decision. They need to look at the data and react. McLaren, they have to be more conservative than Ferrari, that potentially can go for it earlier. 2-stop window, around lap 10 to 15, 1-stop lap 20. Throwing back to you on the grid, Laura.
Thank you, Ruth. I love it when a race is up in the air, and actually what we might see is some teams going, look, we absolutely can't make the 1-stop work, we're going to have to go for a 2-stop, and then other teams having to make that decision live as they're going around the track, and we're hearing plan B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever it goes up to. That's when it gets a bit exciting, when we're on the cusp between the two.
And the thing is, last year on paper, the 1-stop was faster, but in practice, all the leaders went to the 2-stop. You have to make those calls mid-race. That's where the strategists really earn their money. And sometimes it's set off by one team rolling the dice, and that just makes people realize they have to cover, they've got to make that switch. You've got to be flexible, you've got to be adaptable. That's how you win Grand Prix. Yeah,
and safety cars, the risk of yellows, of reds, of anything here that may happen through the course of this Grand Prix. One final Grand Prix as well. There's a sense of the final day of school here, isn't there? For the fans here, though, they have been absolutely loving this weekend. They've been outside the gates, they've been trying to